While Donald Trump was busy building walls, Mark Carney was busy building a bridge to the richest peninsula in the Persian Gulf. On January 18th, 2026, a Canadian Prime Minister landed in Doha for the first time in history. Not for a layover, not for a conference, but to sign a deal that fundamentally alters the balance of power in the Middle East. Now, we're elevating our relationship with an ambitious new strategic partnership across trade, commerce, investment, AI, and defense to deliver greater stability, security, and prosperity for our peoples. That was Mark Carney's declaration. He wasn't just announcing a trade deal with a $290 billion economy. He was announcing a complete bypass of the United States as the traditional middleman in Canada-Gulf relations. Trump thought pressure would force Canadian submission. Instead, he created the perfect conditions for a Canada-Qatar rapprochement. While the United States imposed 100% tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles and alienated its allies with unpredictable rhetoric, Carney flew to Doha and secured landmark deals in aerospace, artificial intelligence, and defense. While Washington threatened, Ottawa built alternatives. Today, we are showing you exactly how the Canada-Qatar partnership transforms Gulf relations, how new defense cooperation agreements bypass the Pentagon entirely, how AI partnerships are being formed that deliberately exclude Silicon Valley, how Trump's trade war pushed Canada to build independent relationships in the Gulf, and how this strategic partnership creates permanent facts on the ground that Washington cannot reverse. Stay until the end, because the details of the aerospace deal alone explain why Quebec is cheering while American contractors are fuming. But before we dive into this story, if you appreciate in-depth analysis like this, hit that like button and subscribe to stay informed on the stories that truly matter. January 18th, 2026. Doha, Qatar. Mark Carney arrived as the first sitting Canadian Prime Minister to ever visit the state. No predecessor made this trip, not Trudeau, not Harper, not any Canadian leader in history. The relationship existed, of course. Trade happened. Diplomatic channels were open. But it was never elevated to the Prime Minister level. It never warranted top-level engagement. Carney broke that precedent completely. He met with His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, the Emir of Qatar, a full ceremonial reception, bilateral discussions, joint announcements, commitments that will shape the relationship for decades. Why now? Because Trump created urgency. Unpredictable American policy, tariff threats, and annexation rhetoric made it crystal clear to Ottawa: Canada cannot rely on a single partner. It must diversify. It must build alternatives, and Qatar represents that alternative perfectly. Qatar has an economy worth $290 billion, the third largest in the Gulf region after Saudi Arabia and the UAE. It possesses enormous sovereign wealth despite its small population. The Qatar Investment Authority manages hundreds of billions in assets, constantly looking for global opportunities. They seek stable partners. They want diversification from traditional relationships. Canadian infrastructure needs investment. Energy projects require capital. Defense modernization needs funding. The technology sector seeks partnerships. Every major Canadian priority aligns with Qatari capabilities and interests. It is a perfect match. The joint statement committed to accelerated two-way investment in artificial intelligence, quantum computing, aerospace, defense technologies, advanced manufacturing, agriculture, and agri-food. Every major Canadian industry sector is covered. Every growth area is identified. This is a comprehensive partnership that Trump cannot possibly match because his entire strategy relies on America First exclusivity. Perhaps the most significant shift is in defense. Canada is establishing a defense attaché office in Doha. For the first time ever, a permanent diplomatic military presence. This increases bilateral engagement frequency and deepens the defense relationship. Crucially, it facilitates Canadian defense exports to the Gulf market without routing through American channels. Framework negotiations have been launched for military expertise exchange on security and defense matters. This is not just equipment sales. This is not transactional arms dealing. This is comprehensive cooperation. Training programs, joint exercises, intelligence sharing where appropriate, strategic consultation on regional security, technology transfer, a full-spectrum partnership approach. The United States has historically dominated Gulf defense relationships. Absolutely. Massive weapon sales running into hundreds of billions, multiple military bases across the region, joint operations with virtually every Gulf state. American defense contractors viewed the Gulf as a captive market. The Pentagon assumed permanent dominance, but Canada is carving out significant space by offering a different value proposition. Advanced technology without political baggage. Training excellence recognized globally. No political strings attached to sales. No demands for policy alignment. No threats of sanctions or pressure. Qatar recognizes the value. They welcome diversification from overwhelming American dependence. The Canadian defense industry benefits enormously from this opening. Access to a Qatari market worth billions. Potential contracts across multiple sectors. CAE simulation training systems are world-class. Aerospace components are cutting-edge. Cybersecurity solutions and sophisticated communication systems are all exportable to Qatar without American approval needed. The Defense Attaché Office in Doha facilitates these connections, removes barriers, and accelerates deals. Trump assumed Gulf states had no choice but American weapons, no alternatives to Pentagon-approved systems, no way to diversify suppliers meaningfully. Canada is proving this assumption completely wrong. The partnership approach beats the transactional relationship every time. Qatar is choosing Canadian cooperation over American dominance, making a strategic decision to reduce dependence on a single supplier. Then there is the technology sector. Information technology cooperation has been expanded to include artificial intelligence and quantum computing investment opportunities in all areas. Strategically, Qatar is building AI capacity. Canada is a global AI leader. Montreal, Toronto, Edmonton, all major research centers. Notice who is excluded from this conversation. Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, all the dominant US players. The Canada-Qatar partnership bypasses them. Bilateral cooperation, direct investment, joint research. Canadian AI companies get access to Qatari capital. Qatari institutions get access to Canadian expertise. No American intermediaries taking a cut or imposing restrictions. Trump's trade war with China disrupted tech supply chains and made technology political. Canada offers an alternative. A stable partner with advanced capability and no geopolitical baggage. Qatar recognizes the value and invests accordingly. Quantum computing is especially significant. This is cutting-edge technology with massive national security implications. Canada is a leader in quantum research, centered around the University of Waterloo and Quantum Valley. Qatar is interested in building capability, a partnership independent of the United States. After years of stalled negotiations, a breakthrough was finally achieved. Canada and Qatar agreed to conclude a Foreign Investment Promotion and Protection Agreement, or FIPA, by the summer of 2026. This is a critical legal framework. It provides certainty for capital flows, dispute resolution, and everything investors need to feel safe. FIPA enables Canadian businesses to expand in Qatar with confidence. Nearly 10,000 Canadians already live and work there in aerospace, AI, defense, and agri-food. FIPA makes expansion easier, protection stronger, and investment secure. More importantly, it facilitates Qatari investment in Canada. The Qatar Investment Authority was growing its Canadian portfolio by 20% annually, even before FIPA. After the agreement is signed, that growth accelerates. Infrastructure, energy, technology, real estate, all sectors are open. The United States already has trade relationships with Qatar, but Canada is offering something different. Partnership, collaboration, mutual respect, not demands, not threats. Carney's approach contrasts sharply with Trump's bullying style, and Qatar responds accordingly. Quebec accounts for nearly half of Canadian exports to Qatar. Aerospace drives this. Bombardier, CAE Training Systems, Pratt & Whitney Canada, high-value technology exports that create high-paying jobs back home. The roar of jet engines over the Persian Gulf is usually the sound of American dominance. For decades, if you wanted air superiority or commercial aviation supremacy in this region, you knocked on Washington's door. But Mark Carney just changed the locks. The partnership he unveiled isn't just about selling planes, it is about integrating the entire nervous system of a nation's defense and infrastructure. Qatar Airways is a global titan, a carrier that defines modern aviation. And now, Canadian companies are stepping in to supply the components, the maintenance systems, and the training solutions that keep that titan airborne. But the Foreign Investment Promotion and Protection Agreement, FIPA, accelerates this partnership far beyond civilian travel. It extends into the hard power of defense, military transport, advanced surveillance systems, unmanned aerial vehicles. Canadian companies are now competing for the contracts to modernize the Qatari military, and they are winning because Canada provides these systems without the political complications that come with American hardware. This is a clean break. Air services are expanding. The Canada-Qatar Air Transport Agreement has been amended to allow more flights and better connectivity. Economic integration is following the flight paths. But Carney didn't stop at the runway. He took the meeting to the hospital wards. He met with Qatar's Minister of Public Health to discuss a frontier where Canada excels: artificial intelligence in healthcare. Qatar is investing heavily in its medical infrastructure, and they are looking for the next generation of diagnostic tools and treatment optimization. Canadian biotechnology and AI-driven health tech are ready to deploy. Previously, United States companies dominated this sector, but Canada offers a distinct advantage: advanced technology combined with lower political risk and better terms. Qatar is responding with checkbooks open. To ensure this isn't just a handshake that fades away, Canada and Qatar established the Joint Commission on Economic, Commercial, and Technical Cooperation. This is not a one-time deal. It is not a photo opportunity. It is a permanent mechanism: regular meetings, ministerial-level reviews, a structured process to identify opportunities and resolve issues. It covers everything: trade flows, investment projects, technology transfers. The United States has various mechanisms with Qatar: military cooperation through CENTCOM, sporadic trade discussions, but nothing matching the comprehensive scope of this new Canadian Commission. Canada is building a long-term vision. The first priority is increasing bilateral trade, which currently exceeds $325 million, but the potential is for dramatic expansion. The Qatari market needs Canadian expertise. Canadian companies need Qatari capital. The Commission makes the match. Then comes the irony of the FIFA World Cup. In 2026, Canada, Mexico, and the United States are co-hosting the tournament. Qatar successfully hosted the World in 2022, and they possess expertise that Canada desperately wants. A security best practices exchange has been agreed upon. Canada is learning directly from Qatar's lessons in stadium security, crowd management, cybersecurity, and transportation logistics. It is ironic. Trump's America is a co-host, yet Canada is seeking Qatari expertise directly, bypassing American coordination to build a bilateral relationship. The United States is included in the tournament, but they were excluded from the security cooperation negotiations. Perhaps the most critical deal for the individual citizen is the start of negotiations on a double taxation agreement. Nearly 10,000 Canadians currently live and work in Qatar. Right now, the tax situation is complex. This agreement eliminates the burden. It makes Qatar significantly more attractive for Canadian professionals. Higher take-home pay, simpler compliance. Expect the Canadian presence in the region to grow significantly. But this flows both ways. The tax treaty facilitates Qatari investment in Canada because tax treatment affects returns. This improves the economics of capital flows, which brings us to the elephant in the room: the Qatar Investment Authority. This fund manages hundreds of billions of dollars in massive sovereign wealth. They seek opportunities globally, and they like what they see in Canada: stable infrastructure, appealing energy projects, promising technology companies, real estate that holds its value. During his visit to Doha, Carney met with the QIA leadership to discuss major projects needing capital. There is a perfect alignment. Canadian assets are available. Qatari capital is ready. The QIA was already growing its Canadian portfolio by 20% annually. Expect that to accelerate post-FIPA. This is the capital that the United States wants. American infrastructure needs investment. American energy projects require funding. But Qatar is choosing Canadian opportunities. Why? The partnership approach, political stability, and respect. Trump's chaos drives investors away. Canada attracts them. These QIA investments create jobs, fund infrastructure, and enable energy projects in Canada, all independent of the United States. It demonstrates Canada's ability to attract global capital without American intermediation. Carney also touched on a profound moment of shared history. He specifically mentioned Qatar's role in evacuating 200 Canadians from Afghanistan in 2021. When the situation in Kabul collapsed, Qatar stepped up. It was a profound act of friendship. Canadian citizens were extracted because Qatar was reliable when it mattered most. Trust was built through crisis. The partnership was forged under pressure. Carney referenced this explicitly. Qatar appreciates recognition. Canada remembers assistance. This is the foundation for a strategic relationship. Yes, the United States also evacuated from Afghanistan, but that exit was chaotic and criticized globally. Qatar helped the American evacuation too, but the US often took that assistance for granted. Canada is expressing gratitude and leveraging it into a relationship. Carney called Qatar a critical partner in the shared pursuits of peace and stability, from Ukraine to the Middle East. This acknowledges Qatar's outsized diplomatic role. They mediate conflicts. They facilitate negotiations. They host peace talks. From Hamas-Israel negotiations to prisoner exchanges and Taliban talks, Qatar is an effective diplomatic actor despite its small size. Canada wants a partnership with a player like that. The United States often conducts Gulf diplomacy bilaterally, imposing positions and demanding compliance. Canada takes a different approach. Recognize Qatari capabilities, seek partnership, and offer collaboration. Qatar is responding positively. This diplomatic cooperation complements the economic partnership, creating a comprehensive relationship built on shared interests and mutual respect. To cement these ties, Qatar is marking 2026 as the Year of Culture, with an emphasis on international engagement. Canada is participating with cultural events, artistic exchanges, and museum collaborations. Carney extended an invitation to the Emir and the Foreign Minister to visit Canada. Return visits are planned. Cultural programs will accompany them. This is relationship building, not just commercial transactions. It is deep engagement across society. The 10,000 Canadians in Qatar create a natural bridge. Professional connections, business relationships, and personal friendships all contribute to bilateral ties. While the United States has a larger presence in the Gulf, it is often military-focused and transactional. Canada is building something more sustainable. Qatar's economy approaches $300 billion with enormous per capita wealth. Canadian companies now access this massive purchasing power directly. Aerospace sales, defense contracts, technology partnerships, healthcare systems, infrastructure projects, agriculture imports, energy cooperation. Every sector has opportunities. FIPA removes the barriers. The Joint Commission facilitates the connections. While U.S. companies also access the Qatar market, they now face formidable competition from Canada. The Canadian approach wins business because the partnership model attracts contracts. Collaboration builds relationships. The transactional American style is losing ground. Qatar wants diversification. They do not want to be dependent on a single supplier or held hostage to American politics. Canada offers an alternative: reliable, advanced, respectful. It is the perfect partner for Qatari strategy. In the end, Trump's threats and chaos drove Canadian diversification. Every annexation comment made alternatives urgent. Every tariff threat made new partnerships necessary. Every insult made independence desirable. Carney is explicitly pursuing a diversification strategy. The China Partnership, Mexico Cooperation, Gulf relationships, all designed to reduce United States dependence. Qatar fits perfectly wealthy, stable, and globally connected. Trump cannot reverse this. He cannot threaten Canada into abandoning the Qatar relationship. He cannot offer a counterproposal that matches Qatari investment. He cannot replicate the partnership approach because his leverage is gone. Canada has built alternatives successfully. Qatar benefits from the partnership by diversifying away from U.S. dependence and accessing advanced Canadian capabilities. It is a win-win. Both countries gain. The United States loses influence. Trump's pressure backfired completely. The Qatar partnership demonstrates successful independence. Canada can build major relationships without American approval. It can attract global capital without U.S. intermediation. It can pursue strategic interests autonomously. Trump's threats achieved the opposite of their intent. They strengthened Canadian sovereignty, proved Canadian capability, and created facts on the ground that Washington cannot change. A strategic victory for Canada, a diplomatic disaster for Trump, and a permanent transformation of Canada-Gulf relations that excludes the United States as an intermediary.